Alright guys, I'm back live. I'm sorry about that. So if you're just now tuning back in, I apologize. My phone decided in Facebook that it would not let me broadcast horizontally. It would only let me go vertically, so then I had to restart my phone and then it froze up. So I appreciate that, guys, for tuning in. So delete that other video, share this video. This is the important one. I'm not going to mess with my phone anymore. What's up, Sean? So if you're just catching back in tune with this, got some new products. I'll run back over them really quickly with you guys. Baby Huey worm. This is a big 10.5 inch paddle tail spade tail worm. Some guys were asking last week about these, and the Baitman has delivered. This is probably the most famous paddle tail out there. This is plum. Actually, no, this is cranapple. This is my favorite color right here. It's pretty old school. It's a really good one. You know, Dan Moorhead actually won an FLW event by flipping this worm in the bushes. Lucky Strike ringworm is also back in stock. Several really good colors. This is my favorite Kentucky Lake brush pile worm. Probably my favorite worm altogether. If there was one bait that I could be stranded with the rest of my life, it would be this worm. It just catches them. What's up, Benji? What's up, Eric Filburn? Again, if you're just now joining in, first we're going to run a giveaway. That'll be after the show. My YouTube guys, to enter that giveaway, I just want you to comment on this video, leave your email address, and we'll have a photo after the show. We're going to give away a really good deep crankbait selection. Same as always, like, share, and comment. Next up, let's talk about the sale on TackleFreaks.com. Buy any 6XD or 5XD. Buy 3, you get 1 free. And if you buy like 7, for some reason the system doesn't recognize it, I'll refund your 2 free ones. You'll get 1 free automatically, but I'll refund anything after that. So if you buy 9, you'll get 3 free crankbaits, and I'll get you taken care of. And that's on 5XD, 6XD, Silent 6, and Silent 5. That's the special Strike King sale. That's going through Sunday. So there's a code called Strike King, and that's what you'll put in there, Strike King, to get the buy 3 get 1 free. And that's online only. We're not doing that in the store. But also, if you're just joining, Plum Crazy Mag Truck Worm back in stock. I got my phone charged up tonight. Let's just put it this way, I can ramble for quite a while if I want to. And what else have we got new I wanted to talk about? Oh yeah, guys have been asking. We got these back into the Picasso Sugin heads, ½ ounce all the way up to 1 1/4 ounce. The Scrounger craze is still real. Can't get any Jerky J's for a while, but you can get the Picasso Sugin, probably from my experience the best on the market. I'm going to put some underwater video in my pool and show you what these look like next week. It's going to be sweet. And if you didn't know, 6 Cents, and we're going to talk about them later, they make a great deep crankbait. They also make an awesome topwater. The guys that are fans of the Vixen, the Repo Man, you need to check out the Dogma. It is the real deal. This is the Dogma 115. It's a sweet bait. Hey Ryan, what's up? Robert Danielson, the Spinnerbait Man, joining in live here tonight. So let's go ahead and we'll get started on deep cranking. That is one of my favorite things to do. And when I say deep cranking, I mean 14 to 30 feet. And the same bait isn't going to work for every depth of water. The first thing I want to start off is let's talk about, we're going to go biggest to small and start with manufacturers. So the first bait I'm going to talk about, and I got a box full of them, is what's in this box right here. This is the almighty, the 10XD, and I've got some Z-Boss 25s in here, but this is my deep cranking box, and I broke a few off in the last couple months. It's getting a little low, but that's how I store my 10XDs, is in that Bass Mafia box, just like that. I think I can hold 2, 4, 6, I can hold like 20 of them in here. And so this is a 10XD outside the box. You can tell it is used, and this is my #1 color, chartreuse powder blue. Now this bait runs about 22 to 25 feet on 12-pound test line pretty easily. The one key to this bait right here is having the right rod and reel that can handle 20+ foot divers. So I have a specialized rod and reel I like to use. I'll show it to you. And this is what I found to be the best, for me personally, 10XD setup. This is an old school G Loomis CBR 959DD. That DD stands for deep diver. This rod has, you can see it has a lot of backbone here, a lot of backbone. As you get out toward the tip on this rod, it's got pretty good flex. It is a little stiff, but it will still flex very good. And the reason I want that flex is I have to load this rod up to cast that bait. The farther you cast a bait like this right here, the deeper it's going to get and the quicker. Now, I've got this paired with a Shimano Tranx 300. It's a 5/8-to-1 reel. It's got an oversized handle, and it just makes cranking these big crankbaits really, really easy. Now, this is not a budget-friendly setup. I mean, you're looking at right around $600 or more for this setup right here. I like the longer handle. I can tuck it under my arm as I reel, but it makes things really, really easy. The rod's sensitive, and it's probably the most expensive setup I own. Now, my good fishing partner, Jeff Defew, he is the best crankbait fisherman I have ever been around, and he uses an old school Shimano Crucial 711 cranking rod and a BB1 Pro, and he's caught so many fish on that. So, but that rod's perfect for what he wants to do, and that's what I stress in crankbait fishing. You cannot have a super stiff rod. You will not get the action out of those crankbaits, but you also can't have a noodle, or you're not going to feel anything, and it gets harder to fight fish. This rod's a great blend in them both. The Dobyns 805 CB is a really good rod. I like the 806 when I get to the 10XDs. The Champion Series Dobyns rods are awesome. I'm sold out, so I don't have any on hand. But I'll give you a rule of thumb on selecting a rod. If the bait dives 10 to 14 foot, 7 foot. If it goes 14 to 20 foot, you want a 7'6" rod. Anything after 20 foot, you've got to have a 7'11" to 8 foot rod. So that's a really good measure. Basically 6 inches for every 5 feet after 15 feet it dives, and you're going to be right there. Several great rods. Now let's talk about the 10XD and something I want to show guys. The 10XD is actually the same body profile as the 5XD. So there's the 5XD, and you'll notice how it's a very teardrop shape, and the 10XD has the same style body. What's different is you can tell an 8XD and a 10XD have a totally different style body, and you're going to get two totally different actions. This 10XD also has a big loud knocker in it, and you can make these things silent, but it takes some work and you got to do it right or you can't cast them very well. But that's the 10XD. Favorite colors: chartreuse and blue, citrus shad, green, gizzard. I use an old school Browning rod. Those are really good rods. I used to have one myself. But let's keep talking about the Strike King crankbaits. You step down from the 10, you go to an 8XD, and I've actually caught a lot of fish on the 8XD. This one's got a few battle scars in it. When that water gets super clear, guys, this is a great tip, like we are right now on Kentucky Lake and other parts of the country. I really go down to translucent colors. I like a chartreuse shad, a blue or green gizzard. Those are some of my favorites. I keep it really simple though. Early stained water, chartreuse and blue, citrus shad. Water clears up, get more bait moving out there, I go to these very simple translucent colors. But the 8XD will run about 20 to 22 foot, and that's on 12-pound line. I really like it. They are a little inconsistent. I'll get a few that only run about 18, 19 foot. Before I get too far into this, let's talk about line real quick. This is the most important part of fishing deep crankbaits. If you do not have light line, it totally goes against what you're trying to do. So I'll throw this bait right here. Almost 90% of my crankbaits, I throw 10-pound tests. Love table rock shad, Randy. And Randy, I'd really like to know who you are. If you're really Randy, that's awesome. But Sunline 10-pound assassin, that's what I've been cranking with pretty much all year. I really like it. It's a really good line. Very smooth, comes off the spool real easy. I can get plenty of distance with it. It's got some good abrasion resistance. FC Sniper, if you're a sniper fan, this 10-pound line, the low line diameter, lets that bait get really, really deep. I do not ever use a lead core sinker, Steve. If I need to get really far down, I will do some long lining, but I try to avoid that. Or Kelly Jordan in Texas call it strolling. But 10-pound line, there's a lot of guys that say, man, I'm afraid if I break my crankbait off. Let me tell you, crankbaits float. So if you break it off, if it's not in a fish's mouth, it's going to float back up to the top. And if you still are scared, shit, god dang, my phone just jumped off. I do not use braid, Eddie, and there's a reason for that. Get you a hound dog lure retriever. If you're scared of breaking these over, this would be the best investment you can ever get. Just a lure retriever. Joe, I don't use braid. That's just a personal preference. I know some guys crank with braid. I personally don't like it. There's no stretch at all. There is stretch in fluorocarbon, not a whole lot, but there is some stretch, and I like that for crankbait fishing. Most of my moving baits, I want a little bit of stretch. I want it to load up. I want to feel the fish before it feels me, and that's one reason I use the rods I do. I like that flex in the rod. If you're still on a budget and want a really good crankbait line, I'm telling you, this K9 line is really, really good. In fact, I think this is some of the best crankbait line on the market. And $18.99 for 550 yards, you're not going to find a better deal. And instead of using 10 and K9, because the diameter is so thin, I'll run like 14-pound tests, and I can get the same depth I can with like 10-pound Sunline. Sunline's a little more abrasion resistant, but this is really good stuff. What is too heavy? 14. If you want to fish, say, a 10XD in 14 foot of water, up your line size. And I'll be honest with you, there are times when I'll throw this big bait right here in 12, 16 foot of water, just dredging on the bottom, because they don't see that all the time, just putting a bigger profile out there. And I'll up my line size to do that. What's up, Huddleston? I hope you're enjoying Margaritaville. I do have 12-pound K9 in stock, Daniel. So let's get back on to the baits, and I'll show you a different setup. So probably the most famous deep crankbait is this guy right here. It's won so much money. This is the 6XD by Strike King, and this one's definitely beat up. Caught a lot of fish on this. Chartreuse powder blue. There's not a better one on the Tennessee River than this one right here. Now, my setup is totally different for what I use a 6XD, and I'll show you it. You can get away with a 7'6" rod, but I've been using this Daiwa Tatula Elite rod. This is the Brent model, and one thing about this rod is it's a glass composite rod. If you'll notice, it has a whole lot of tip, whole lot. But what's good about this rod being 8 foot is I can cast the 6XD a mile, and the reel I've been using is the new Tatula 150P. Why is that important? This 150 spool allows me to put a whole lot more line on here, so I can make even longer casts. And if I break off, I'm not down to the bottom of my spool. I've got plenty of line here. The P stands for power ratio, so this is a 5-to-5 reel. It's very smooth, and those guys, Lou's discontinued the BB1 Pro and that 5-to-1 ratio. The good thing is Daiwa has a big crankbait reel right now, and I have sold several of these, and it pairs with this rod awesome. So if I'm throwing 6XDs, DT16s, stuff like that, this is the setup I'm going to go with. If you're not a Daiwa fan, that's okay. I would look at any rod that's a 7.6 medium moderate action. That's going to cast those 6XDs, the Z-Boss 22s, the Cloud 15 20s very well. I really like the low gear ratio. in these right here. Yeah, Clayton, I understand, buddy. I wish they did have it in the left. And it's really hard now to find reels in 5-to-1 ratios. Yes, I prefer, I don't like a solid graphite rod. I prefer a glass blend rod. I'm really hoping the Daiwa guys will listen to me and we can get a little bit. This same rod and one more power would be a perfect 10XD rod. Phoenix makes a really good rod. Their X13, X15s are awesome 10XD rods. And that Loomis is a graphite rod, but y'all know Loomis blanks are awesome, and I can feel that bait. So 6XDs, anything between a 7.6 to 8 foot, you're going to be really good. I crank mostly with a 5-to-1. I will crank like use a 6-to-1 every now and then as well. Now, this is really a great all-around cranking setup, and this is my buddy Brent Anderson's rod. This is the Redemption Brent Anderson deep cranking rod. So it's a 7-foot 7-inch rod. Can I use a spinning rail? I suck at using a bait caster. Absolutely. Just get you a 4000 series model and a long offshore rod, and you can go. I do long line every now and then. Every now and then. So this rod retails at $159. This is the Redemption Brent Anderson big crankbait rod. I know a lot of guys know Brent as a topwater guy, also awesome cranking fisherman. This is 7'7", medium moderate action, and I've got this paired with a Lew's Super Duty wide spool just to show you guys. They make this in a 5-to-1. They no longer make the BB1 Pro, but they make this right here. Sean, yes, I absolutely carry Dobbins rods. I'm just out of their crankbait rods right now. But you can order them on TackleFreaks.com, and I'll have them ship it directly to your house. But this is about the right length for those 5XDs, 6XDs, stuff like that. I love this rod. These Redemption rods made there in Nashville are awesome. And Brent's a good guy, and he's a good crankbait fisherman. He knew what he was looking for when he designed this. So I'll have him on the show soon. Now, let's keep talking about the crankbaits. So we go from a 10XD to an 8XD to my favorite, the 6XD. And when it gets really tough, I'll go to a silent 6. Like right now, Kentucky Lake, Tennessee River, I'm going to throw a silent bait, and you will get more bites. There's not a whole lot of change in the action, but you won't hear this sound every time the bait comes by. And those fish get accustomed to it. So you get on a school and you're catching fish, and all of a sudden it stops. I like to have the same bait in a silent version tied up. Fire that right back in the school, and you'll pick off a few more fish. Now, one of my favorite baits that I've started catching a lot of fish on this year is this one right here, and this is a 5XD. This is green gizzard, and this dude has got some scars on it. It has been eaten. It's even got a bent out hook. Again, the 5XD, a way smaller body, a smaller lip. This is going to go about 13 to 15 foot. On 10-pound line, I can hit that 15 range. But I love the small profile. Want to fish this is a little bit more finesse. Your lakes that there's not a lot of really deep water, where 16, 17 foot is going to be the deepest. This is a great bait. And I love the 5XDs. They run very true. But as you see, the 10XD is basically a supersized version of the 5, whereas the 8XD is a supersized version of the 6XD. And one cool thing I do like about the 5XD is I don't really have to get a crazy crankbait setup. I throw this on the same setup I throw my square bills. I've been using the Daiwa Tatula Elite Takahiro 7-foot glass rod, and I pair it with a 100p Tatula, and this is I can basically take my spring crankbait setup, and I just tie this bait on, and I'm good to go. And let's answer a few questions here. Do you change your hooks out to short shanks or just run regular round bends? Cranking, you prefer fluoro or braid? Fluoro, carbon, 100% of the time. I'll show you the hooks I change out. Sometimes I burn it, sometimes I don't. I really try to figure out what the fish want. Sometimes they do want that really fast retrieve. I know those guys down south like burn them on 7-to-1 reels. It just wears me out. But I'm glad somebody asked me on the hooks. For the most part, I leave them stock, and that's not always the best thing. I leave them stocked because I crank a lot of brush piles, a lot of shell beds. It gets really expensive when you start breaking baits off, and I'm one of those guys. I'm not going to go to a brush pile to try to get a bait back. I'll just break it off because it'll float up. But when I do change my hooks, I like the Owner ST41. I use a 1/0 on my 10XDs, 8XDs, or when I throw a 6XD, I use these right here a lot. This is becoming my favorite treble hook. It's ST41. And these are super sharp, made out of that Zowire. With the 5XD, am I still throwing it on 10 pound? Yes and no. I've got a few places I like to throw a crankbait that's like 8-10 foot on top, and I'll throw like 12 or 14, just so I'm not overpowering it. The best way to shorten up the depth on your crankbait instead of changing crankbaits is use different line. And if you know they're biting one bait and you're going to fish at multiple airs, there's nothing wrong with having 2 reels pulled out with 2 different size lines. So I throw this on 12 quite a bit, but for the most part, when I want to get down there 20 foot, I'm going to throw 10 pound line. In the spring, I throw 10, 12. It just depends, but to maximize the depth, you've got to use that light line. If I want that bait to run shallower, instead of changing my retrieve, I just change line. I'll go up in line size, make it go shallower. What's up, Johnny? But I really like the Owner hooks. Someone asked if I use short shanks. Yes, I will put, I've used these KVD 2X on my 6XDs a lot. I really like them. The one thing, they do go dull pretty quick. I've noticed on the shell beds, I've had a few dull out on me. Great hooks, nothing against them. And matter of fact, I use these on a lot of crankbaits, but the new Owner Zowires, I want that longer shank on a bait like this size. I want that hook to be able to hang out there. The short shanks, sometimes I miss a few fish. Chris, I don't add any weight to my crankbait. That's me personally. I'll leave it pretty stock for the most part. I don't put any coarse sinkers up there. These crankbaits now, they don't really need a lot of weight. They all throw really well. So let's get into another crankbait that is a favorite of mine. Get a lot of questions on this. This is the Z-Boss 25. That color is Grand Shad. That's one of my favorite colors right there. That's kind of their play on sexy blueback herring. Matter of fact, that's about one of the only colors I throw. My opinion on trapper tackle hooks, anytime you put a square bend in a round hook, it's just not a good idea. I'll just put it that way. There's a reason I don't carry them. There's an idea that's been around for years. They're putting a lot of marketing into it, putting everybody as pro staff, so there's a lot of talk. I've tested their regular worm hooks, not a fan. What size do you change on the 5XD? What kind? I'll just use like number 4s, number 2s, and I'll just stick with that Owner Stinger hook. That's kind of my favorite. Now this bait will dive like 30 foot. I know guys that will long line this on 8-pound test and they hit 30 feet. Very easy to reel bait. Now you see how this bait's designed. This is a really flat top on the head of here, a really long bill, and it comes out at an angle and it kind of scoops. What that does is make this bait dive straight down, and when it gets down there, it does something different. This bait doesn't have a lot of crazy wobble to it or hunt, but this bait hits the bottom and it glides forward. So how I like to fish this bait, I like to reel it down to the bottom and let my rod pull the bait along, and those fish absolutely crush this big Z-Boss. And this one's been in a few battles. Now this Z-Boss 25, obviously this is the deepest diving model they make. Trey, I don't have any of those, bud. I've heard some great things about them. When we get our new store built, I'm going to add that line of crankbaits in there. Matt and Alan and Tim have told me a lot about those baits. This guy right here, they're a great crankbait. But they got some other models. This is the Z-Boss 24, and it's shoot, it's my favorite color they make. If I can get this box open here, probably not. These companies got to make these boxes easier for the bait man to get in, I can tell you that. But the Profound Outdoors crankbaits run really good. I've never had one run bad out of the package. They're very true. They are a little bit bigger body. This color right here is called Hot Mess. So this is your powder blue It's like a metallic powder blue chartreuse sides. Now this is the 24. We'll compare it to the 25 here. The 24 get down there about 26 feet on 10-pound line, but you can tell. God dang. Hook in my hand. Holy shit. Pardon my French. Whew. We about had to go to the ER. But you can tell the body size is really about the same, but the lip on the 24 is smaller. Do I like oval or round split rings? Really, it doesn't matter to me. I actually like, I'm glad you asked that. I like some owner split rings. They make a hyperwire oval, and I really like it a lot. But I really don't change my split rings out too often, to be honest with you. I'm a lazy fisherman, and I think sometimes we get caught up in all these modifications on our baits, and the main deal is you got to get it around fish. And you know, it's all about, a lot of times it's about the retrieve. I don't think changing some of this stuff out makes a huge amount of difference. Now, like Profound put the oval split ring on there. But that's the 24, that's the 25. If you want to go down to about 24 foot, this is the one to throw great bait right here. And then the one that Randy Haynes has really talked up and made quite famous lately is, and kind of my one, this came out last year. I really like this. Yeah, those Z-Boss, I'm going to tell you, my finger's bleeding, so them hooks are sharp as shit. And a lot of guys ask what's the difference between the Randy Haynes version and the Timmy Horton. Nothing. Not a single thing. They just put a different name on there. And that's nothing against anybody else. God. I'm tearing all kinds of packages up tonight. I've never understood, and I love Profound Outdoors. They're great guys over there. What type of retrieve? There's not a single retrieve I use. There's many different. I'll stop and go. I'll burn it. I'll slow roll a big crankbait. Got to figure it out what the fish like. Sometimes they don't want it steady. Sometimes they want it burned. Make multiple casts. That's the biggest thing I see guys. They will give up really quick. And sometimes you don't catch them on that first 2 or 3 casts. Now, when they're really biting a crankbait and you find them on the graph, you can whack them. And it's one of the best ways to catch a ton of fish really quick. Alright, so here's the Z-Boss 22. This says 15 to 18 foot, but you can realistically get this bait down at 20. These are on Tackle Freaks too. They put some really good hooks on here, but and they're sharp. They will dull a little bit. I don't know what they use on there, but that Z-Boss 22 is awesome. Now somebody's going to ask me, what about the 20? I've got a box full of Z-Boss 20s down by my feet. Not a big fan. The 20 only gets about 14 feet. I cannot get it down there. So if you want to get 20 feet, you really want to get to the Z-Boss 22. These Z-Boss cast a mile too, but they aren't silent. They have a knocker in them. Been one of the best sellers there on Tackle Freaks for a long time. I'm kind of low on stock. And this year's not been the best deep crankbait year ever. The crankbait sales have been down, but they're going to bite it. There's guys that will force feed them the crankbait. Now, I know at Guntersville and some other places, they've been pretty much whacking them, but the Z-Boss is a great crankbait, very easy to pull. Let's talk about a bait that hasn't got a lot of fame lately, and ever run a crank that runs to deep water for the... Steve, that's how we fish a ledge. You throw onto the shallow and run it to deep water. Absolutely. Best rod profile. Love the DD22, man. That's a great bait. I was trying to get them out of here, but long story short, I failed to do so. That is the crankbait I grew up fishing a lot. And the problem with the DD22 is you buy 10 and about 3 run right. But when those 3 ran right, you would smash their lights out. The Z-Boss does look similar to a Dredger. And that's funny you say that, because right here in my hands, this is the Berkley Dredger. and it's a great crankbait. It does not get as much love as the Strike King or the Profound, but what I like about this bait, and I'm also going to give a couple away. One, my buddy Mike Russell from Bag 5 Baits designed all these, and these are great baits. Guys, what's cool about this bait is it's got a little weight in the lip. So that allows this bait to get deep really, really fast. This bait will hit bottom in 25 foot with 10-pound test fluoro. The key to that is the lip design, and this little weight makes this thing go whoop. I mean, it just whoop, goes straight down. Yes, I'll make that noise again. Whoop, like Chris Berman. This color is Kentucky Blue Gizzard, I believe, or Kentucky Blue. And I know the colors on the dredgers work because my buddy Mike Russell at Bag 5 Baits has spent a lot of time in his shop and seen him painting up all these. And I'd say, hey, dude, those will catch them. That won't. And they hit the colors out of the park. And these things run really good. One thing that's cool about this dredger, Joe, I'm going to get to it, buddy. Trust me, I got the 6th sense. One thing cool about the dredger, it's kind of like a 6XD mated with a Pose 500. And if you guys remember the Pose cedarwood crankbaits, man, when they hit the shelves, that was the shiznit. Everybody had to have a Pose crankbait. And you know, David Fritz designed this bait, and he's put a lot of work into making great crankbaits. Probably one of the best crankbait fishermen of all time. And this thing right here is a beast. Now, what's cool about that is that thing dives 25 feet. All right? Look at the difference. Got a 10XD and the dredger. See if I can hold this better for you. Smaller profile, but going to still meet the same range. That's why I really like this dredger. You can give them a little bit smaller profile in those deep waters, and that color is freaking sick. And I mean, $8.99 on these things. Something a lot of guys don't know about this dredger, when it hits the bottom, it makes a totally different sound than a Strike King or a Z-Boss. This bait is what I like to call a thumper. When it hits, you can feel it go thump, 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 and it makes a different sound. And that's one thing that I like about this bait. So that's the 25.5. And by the way, you don't have to have an 8-foot rod for these things right here. They pull so easy. You can get away with a 7.6 rod for almost every one of their models. So that's the 25.5, and then they make a 20.5, which runs about 18 to 20 feet deep on 10-pound test line. They're pretty true to what they say. Fluorocarbon is the deal. If you try throwing these things on mono, you're not going to get the depth you will at fluorocarbon, because fluorocarbon does tend to sink. Their Sexy Shad looks awesome too. That's the 20.5. Same style profile, a little smaller lip, but that little metal down there engraved in the lip, inserted in there, lets it get down. Yeah, I agree, Carmen. Man, they're awesome baits. I got these on TackleFreaks.com. We got a really good selection of these things right here. And then the dredger, they also make several other sizes. They make a 17.5. They make a 14.5 and a 10.5. And the color selection is almost like, it's awesome. Not as many as Strike King, but they have the best. I really like the Berkley Dredgers. I haven't thrown them as much as other crankbaits. I'll be real honest. I am a Strike King guy, and I've been throwing a lot of this bait right here, and this is the 6th Sense Cloud 25. Now, this is another big profile bait. This color is called Shad Sense, by the way, and it's kind of like a translucent table rock shad, and I really like this one. This bait does pull pretty hard. It's got a really big wide lip, very similar to the Lucky Craft 5.5 and 6.5s. But these baits that get down there are really deep. I know guys that have claimed they can get to 30 foot pretty easily on this bait right here on 10-pound line. This one will get down there real deep. You can see it's translucent, and you got two big weights right here in the front. Now, it's not as long or loud as a 10XD. Sea Flash, I don't throw a lot of balsa stuff, especially out here. I know that's a really good deal up north. Wallet G makes those. Those are really good baits. Not really my game. Yeah, Berkley's got some awesome hard baits. Their new Whopper Plopper bait's amazing. So that's the Cloud 25. That's going to dive down at 25, 30-foot range. One I really like is the C20. And you can tell a big difference in the body size and lip size on the C20. Again, getting baits out of packages. So there's the C20. This color is Chartreuse Pro Blue. Yeah, Chartreuse Pro Blue. A really deep blue, chartreuse sides. So there's the 20 versus the 25 Cloud. These have been super popular. These are very good. The 20, I think, pulls perfect. It dives good. 6th Sense has the best paint jobs in the game as far as a big manufacturer. Their Gizzard shad colors, their bluegill colors are awesome. Now you want to get a really realistic, you want to pay some really good money. Not too, well, I don't mean expensive money. You go see my buddy Mike Russell at Bag 5. If you need a match of color, he's the man. But as far as a mass-produced bait, 6th Sense has got it going on. I mean, I'm a Strike King fan, but these guys, Casey is a good dude. And hey, I'll give you a plug. Their shirts, god dang, they're nice, and like $30. So if you think I need to stock some 6th Sense fishing shirts, hit that like button for me. Now, they also make the C15, which is kind of the equivalent of like a 6XD, and this is a very nice bait. This color is called Sob's Juice, or just a real gizzard shaddy color. Very easy pulling bait. I really like these 6th Sense crankbaits. You know, casing them, they're not putting out a lot that's junk. Everything runs good, it looks good. Put the quality triple grip hooks on the crankbaits. They got the split ring and then the paint jobs. But I've thrown this C15 a lot. I did last year quite a bit, caught quite a bit of fish on it. And, you know, that's one of my favorites. The lip, this bait's going to have a real wide action, just the way to make this real wide lip. So it's going to go like this right here. Deflects pretty well off cover, I must add. They do pull a little harder, but there's some trade-off. Most of your really deep diving crankbaits are going to pull really hard. You can usually tell if you get a 10XD and it's barely pulling, it's not swimming right. Or it's pulling ridiculously hard, it's trying to do this number right here. But that's the 6th Sense Cloud 15. Those are on Tackle Freaks. We just got another shipment of those. Now, I'm about to show you the bait that has won me and Jeff D. Few more money on Kentucky Lake. And I have probably not thrown this bait 10 times in the last 5 years. But there was a point in time where when we wanted to cast a check, when you go check catching time, this is what we tossed. And it will still catch them. Just got to tie them on. I've got plenty. This is the old school Rapala DT16 in Parrot. They will absolutely chomp this bait. Now when I want to crank stumps and crank brush piles in that 14 to 16 foot of water, when I want to get off the main lake and sneak around in some bays where people really don't see us, this is the bait of choice. Why? Because it's balsa. When this bait hits a brush pile, it does something crazy. When you bang a stump and stop it, it floats up backwards really quick. The only downside is they do tend to break. You cannot slap these baits on the side of the water, over the side on the water. They will break. But these DT16s, this one right here especially, won a ton of money on this thing back in, I don't know, 06, 07. You know, Brian, we fished a lot of tournaments against each other. It seemed like it was me and Jeff trying to beat you and Alfred every other tournament. It was either us first or y'all first, and this was the bait, man. This is the bait that turned me into really liking crankbait fishing. I love the DD22, but when these come out, and they still sell and they still catch fish, I think everyone's caught up in who can make the deepest diving one, who can make the prettiest colors. But this right here, that'll catch them. They're coming, Joey. They're coming. One thing I like about that Rapala, man, it dives really easy. web, I actually just use the stock hooks. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of triple grips on big crankbaits. The short shanks anyway. Let me get that. I don't like short shanks on my big crankbaits. I'll keep the stock hooks for the most part. Rapala uses VMC, so they're pretty well. I'm going to tell you guys, I agree with Matt Allen and Tim Little. Hooks aren't junk like they used to be. What they put on the crankbaits now are really good. You're almost doing yourself sometimes a disservice by changing out the hooks. For the most part, your 6-inch, your Rapala, your Berkleys, they had those Fusion 19 hooks. You're kind of hurting yourself if you change them out. You know, I do change my Strike Kings every now and then. Again, I'm not a big hook guy. I like the Owner ST41 Zowires. That's one of my favorite treble hooks out there. Now, I do like that G Finesse hook on smaller crankbaits. Let's see, I'll answer your question. What are the preferred colors in the DTs? Parrot, Caribbean Shad, Bluegill, and another sneaky one is Disco Shad. That is my favorite colors. But if I'm going to throw this crankbait, 90% of the time it's that color or Bluegill. That Bluegill color catch them really good. All right, I've kind of ran the gambit here on my favorites. One, I'm not going to take this out of the package. This is the Booyah Streak. This sucker has a really wide lip, but this is a foam-filled crankbait. It's totally different. It's filled with foam. It has a high flotation. When you hit stuff, it floats off the bottom. It's got a really thick bill. It dives pretty deep. I got those on Tackle Freaks. I haven't thrown this very much. It does pull hard, but it's got a unique body, and it gets some bites and other crankbaits won't. Have you tried Big Money in the Dredger? No, I haven't, man. I'm really hard-headed. I use Sexy Shad, and I use Chartreuse Powder Blue mostly. No Hot Lips web. I don't have any in. If I did, I would show it. So, guys always ask me, what's in your cranking box? This is my cranking box. This is the Bass Mafia cranking casket, and this thing is handy. We'll open this thing. I left this at Mike Russell's this winter, and he custom painted every one of these crankbaits for me. I'm just kidding, but you can see here, I'm not picky on it comes to color. I've got a ton of 8XDs and Chartreuse Powder Blue. They kind of go up the front row. Citrus Shad. Mike painted me up a Moongill and an 8XD. That's a sick color. If you want to throw bluegill baits, this color right here will catch them. Now, Strike King makes this in a 5 to 6. Mike put that in an 8XD for me. And then I've got my, I've got my Chartreuse Shad, my clears. But the majority of my stuff is going to have a chartreuse to it. I've got some 6XDs in here. I'll be honest, I've thrown a lot of them in the floor of my tackle room. I need to stock this back up. I got some Z-Boss 20s in here. Like I said, I'm not a fan of that bait. If you are, send me a message. I got some to sell you. The old Series 5, it's hard to beat that one too. But usually, this thing is full of deep crankbaits. And man, I like this thing. Once it gets locked in, I can stand on this bad dude. Flip it upside down. My crankbaits are in the same spot. So, the only problem, it doesn't hold a 10XD, but dirty rumor is we're fixing to have a 10XD box. We will see. Pick these up. They are a little heavy, but man, I've got so many big crankbaits. I only really put what I'm going to take fishing in here that I really like. Oh, I got another bait to show you guys. 2 actually. We're going to give these away. No, I can't give them the JoJo special, but it's in there. This is the Super DD by Spro. If you like a Little John, I don't like the Z-Boss 20, Stevie. It just dives a little. It doesn't dive deep enough for me. There's more crankbaits at that range I think are really effective. However, I know some guys that really like it. But I do like the 25 and the 24 awesome baits. This is the Super DD Little John. This is their version of a 10XD. You do not see many deep divers that have flat sides. You look at, let's say, the 6 Cents. big fat body, skinny body. 10XD, fat body, skinny body. Cellmate, awesome color. So I'm giving this one away too. I've not tried chrome shad. I don't throw many chromes. But that right there, sweet design. I don't even have these in stock. I keep forgetting to order these, but I'm going to put them on the order next week. So these will be on TackleFreaks.com. Best part about Spro, you're going to have great components. Gamakatsu hooks right out of the package. Again, no need to change these hooks. They're ready to go. And that is the Super Little John DD90. So at 90 millimeters. Goes 20 to 25 foot. I've actually tossed this, and it gets down there. And it's a really easy pull. I love this bait. You need a Series 5 or 5XD. The 5XD will definitely run 8 to 10 foot. You're just going to have to get down to 10-pound test line dust. And I can get a 5XD to get there at about 12 to 15. What kind of action does the flat side have compared to 6 cents? So, that's a great question. Your traditional flat side is going to have a really tight wobble to it. Whereas that 6 cents, it's going to have a lot of swinging back and forth. This is going to have a really tight wobble. And one thing that's cool about this bait, you know, we talk about silent baits. I got to do this where I don't hook myself. You cannot hear that bait rattle. You cannot hear it rattle. Do I throw chartreuse on sunny days with clear water also, or just dirty? Man, I throw chartreuse because these fish are visually feeding on a crankbait. I feel like chartreuse and blue, citrus, it doesn't matter if it's sunny or overcast. That's what I'm going to stick with. For the most part, the color change comes as these fish start getting pressure. When they first come out deep into about mid-June, I'm going to stick with my chartreuse and blues, my citrus shads, stuff like that. As the water clears up, there's more boating pressure, there's more bait out there. That's when I'm going to go to my shad imitators like these that are translucent. This is Cellmate, buddy, and stuff like that. Now, I know guys that throw stuff like Grand Shad all year long, and that's fine. Don't get hung up on color. I am hung up on chartreuse blue and citrus shad, but it's been proven year after year after year on Kentucky Lake and everywhere in the South that they eat this. And my theory is those bluegill is what this is imitating. When you get those bluegill out there, they really go to this right here. And you know, if a bluegill's ever died in your live well, it's going to look out very similar to something like this. Another color that gets a lot of love is splatterback. That's just a shad imitator. Don't get too hung up on color. Now, there are times when, I'll be honest, I've been whacked throwing chartreuse and blue, and the other guy's throwing, you know, citrus shad. But for the most part, if you need somewhere to start, chartreuse powder blue, and get you some kind of sexy shad, and then something that's clear, and you can cover a lot of basics. Clear water, clear baits, dirty, stained water, bright baits. And when I say bright, I mean your chartreuse and black, stuff like that. The best color cranking water is stained water. They can't see it as well. You can get away with throwing so many different things. But anyway, so that is the Super DD, and they make another Little John that I throw quite a bit, and not just in the spring. Before this bait actually came out, I've got an absolute train wreck going on here. I need my good buddy Jeff Defew up in here. I try to message him. I think he's a little gun shy. Oh, where is this bait? Oh, this is the Little John DD70. What's cool about this bait, it runs about, I don't know, 16 to 20 foot. I love the Spro baits because they just don't hang up. And it's hard to get these things hung up, but that's chartreuse nasty, kind of like the Homer color. Again, a flat side deep diver, and these things pull super, super easy. You know, Jay, I used to struggle on those shad colors quite a bit, and once I found some fish that were pressured, needed something different, that's when those shad colors really shine. And now on Kentucky Lake, there's so many big gizzards. Water temperature's 82 July. What type of crank? Like brand? You gotta. These run 16 to 20 foot. What type of crank? I don't really rely on water temperature. I kind of figure out where the fish are going, and that's something you got to learn with on the water time. These fish on Kentucky Lake, man, I catch them on a deep crankbait in 45, 50 degree water. I do not change color depending on the cloud cover. Now, sometimes in the summer, I'll use a translucent bait when it's really bright out there. But for the most part, when the water's got some color to it, you can get away with sunny days, your chartreuse and blue. But I don't let water temperature dictate what type of crankbait. In a colder water, I do like a flat side a little bit better. In the summer, I want that wide wobbling bait. Now I got some buddies that absolutely whack some giants in December and January, deep cranking at 6XD and stuff like that. All right, we're going to give some stuff away tonight. I'm going to give away some Spro crankbaits, some Berkley Dredgers. That's the Little John DD, Harold. Have you ever threw that red eye shad? Yeah, I throw a red eye shad all the time. That's a lipless crankbait. I do throw a lipless crankbait out deep, but that's for a different show. And get on YouTube, look up Tactical Bassing. They've got the best way to fish a lipless crankbait out deep. But guys, I appreciate you joining in on me tonight. Remember, TackleFreaks.com. Use the code StrikeKing. You buy any 3 6XDs or 5XDs, you're going to get one free. Anything after that, if you buy 6, I'll refund you the next one. I'll get this stuff out. Guys, joining in on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. I'll try to get some more stuff up on the website next week. Let's talk about shaky heads. I've got some cool stuff, shaky heads, soft plastics. We're going to talk about that, and then it's time to go to iCast, and I'll have a schedule up on here. What I'm doing in iCast, we're going to have lots of live feeds from Bass Mafia, from Shimano, from Daiwa, from Strike King, you name it. No, I didn't, Webb. I sure haven't, bud. And we're going to do shaky heads and talk about finesse fishing, and then we're going to straight send it to Orlando. So, guys, thanks so much for joining in. You can get almost any of the stuff I just showed you on TackleFreaks.com. And don't forget about our promo. And got some other cool stuff going on. So check out Instagram. Got more 1.5 DDs in as well. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much. I look forward to it every week. And see you back here next Thursday. And I'll get to uploading this on YouTube.